Good morning. Thank you, Gayla. Thank you, April. The daily word was quite informative, so part of it you will hear again. So I just say that right now. Today is Palm Sunday. We always hear Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, like there's nothing in between. But for Jesus, it was a full week. Palm Sunday marks the start of Jesus' last week. I mostly will be using the book of Mark. I use the New Standard, Revised Standard Bible and also the New American Bible where Jesus' words are in red. The last week is recorded in all four Gospels. Some feel that the book of Mark was the first book written and that Luke and Matthew use this book for their accounts. But I'm not a Bible scholar, so I'm just sharing. The writer of Mark, we are told in the book The Last Week by Marcus Borg and John Dominic Corson, takes great lengths to outline this week by day, hour, and minutes. We also are told that there is a different feeling to Jesus during this week. He is urgent, edgy, and pointed. He is a man with a mission to do. So that is the kind of how we're going to do it. We will walk this journey with Jesus, the disciples, the crowd, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the elders, and the Herodians. And with those who tried him, Annas, Caiaphas, the Sanhedrin, Pilate, and Herod. Keep in mind that the Pharisees and the Sadducees are already looking for ways to end Jesus' ministry, and more intently, his life. And when we read the story, we might think Jesus really doesn't do much to help himself this week. We might ask, what is Jesus' mission, agenda, or purpose this week? As we go through the week, we will see that the religious leaders are on him, but he remains laser focused on what he is to do. On Sunday, it's festival, and celebration of Passover is later in the week. The city is enlivened. Jesus rides into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. He sent 2 disciples to the next town over to get the donkey. He tells the disciples that they will find the donkey, and he tells them, if anyone tries to stop you, tell them that the Lord has need of it, and it will be returned back immediately. Riding into Jerusalem this way, Jesus fulfills a prophecy of Zechariah 9:9. It says, "Rejoice gratefully, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, triumphant and victorious. He is humble, riding on a donkey, a colt, a foal of a donkey." Jesus knows this prophecy, and unfortunately for Jesus, so does the Pharisees and the Sadducees. These 2 groups have been looking for ways to end Jesus' ministry. The crowd is elated to see Jesus. They are cheering, throwing cloaks and palms on the road for him to ride in on. They are singing, "Hosanna. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming King of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." The crowd is enamored and enthralled, enamored and enthralled, like their hero or their king has come home. The religious leaders are probably not very happy to say this in the least. Jesus does go into the temple, but it's late. Jesus leaves the city and retreats to Bethany to stay with Lazarus and his sisters, Martha and Mary. On Monday, Jesus and the disciples traveled back to Jerusalem. On the way, we are told that Jesus is hungry. He sees a fig tree in the distance. As they approach it, they can see the tree has leaves, but no fruit. We are told that it isn't time for the fruit. Jesus, sounding aggravated and perturbed, tells the tree, "May no one ever eat of your fruit again." And of course, the disciples that are with him hear this. When they get to the city, they enter the temple. And on entering the temple arena, he begins to drive out anyone, whether they were selling or buying. He overturns the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. He would not even let anyone carry any merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the scribes are seeing this, and they are seeking ways to put him to death. But they fear him because the whole crowd is amazed by his teachings and no doubt his actions. When the evening comes, Jesus and the disciples leave the city. When Tuesday arrives, Jesus and the disciples go back to Jerusalem. On the way into the city, Peter, one of the disciples, sees the fig tree and comments to Jesus, "Look, Rabbi, the tree you cursed has withered." Jesus shares a familiar teaching. He says, "Truly I tell you, if you say to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and if you have no doubt in your heart, but believe that what you say will pass, it will be done for you. So I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." He then tells them, "Whenever you stand praying, forgive. If you have anything against anyone, so that your Father in heaven may also forgive you your trespasses." On this day, the chief priest, the scribes, and the elders approached Jesus. They ask him, "By what authority do you do these things?" And Jesus says, "I will ask you one question." He says, "Was John the Baptist of heavenly or earthly origin?" He says, "Answer me." They discuss it among themselves. Either way, they know Jesus has them. If they say heavenly, they feel Jesus will counter with, "Then why didn't you believe him?" And if they say human origin, they feel that the crowd will be angry because the crowd thought of John as a prophet. The religious leaders say they don't know. And Jesus says to them, "Neither shall I tell you by what authority I do these things." You can imagine, at the very least, they're embarrassed, but probably getting more angry and even more firm in what they feel they have to do. To their faces, Jesus teaches 3 parables. The religious leaders know that he is speaking right to them. The Bible tells us that they are looking for ways to arrest him, but again, they fear the crowd and leave him. The religious leaders send some Pharisees and some Herodians to entrap Jesus. The Pharisees are a religious group, and Herodians are a political group. They usually do not see eye to eye on anything, but Jesus is a whole different problem for both groups. They come to Jesus with a sweet tone and an insulting intent. They say, "We know that you are a truthful man and that you are not concerned about anyone's opinion. You do not regard a person's status, but each of the ways of God in accordance with the truth." They ask the question, "Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not?" The Bible tells us Jesus, knowing their hypocrisy, says, "Why are you testing me? Bring me a coin so I can look at it." They bring him a coin. He says, "Whose image and inscription is this?" And they say, "Caesar's." And he tells us, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God the things that are of God." The Bible tells us that the true groups were utterly amazed at him. He then goes on to teach on resurrection. And again, as they are trying to trap him and trying to make him look bad, he takes a chastising tone with them and says, "Do you not know the scripture? Do you not know the power of God?" He reminds them of what God tells Moses. And he tells them that God is not the God of the dead, but is the God of the living. He flat out tells them they're wrong. A scribe comes up on this dispute. The scribe asks Jesus, "Which commandment is the first commandment?" And Jesus says, "The first is, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with your entire mind and with all your strength.' The second is this, 'You shall love your neighbor as yourself.' There are no other commandments greater than these." The scribe agrees. And Jesus tells the scribe, "You are not far from the kingdom of heaven." The Bible says that after this, no one dare ask him any questions. Jesus goes to teach in the temple. While teaching in the temple, he takes time to denounce the scribes. He says, "Beware of scribes who like to walk around in long robes and to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and be honored at the banquets. They devour widows' houses and for the sake of appearance say long prayers. They will receive the greatest condemnation." Jesus and the disciples leave and move onto the Mount of Olives. He shares many teachings with the disciples. He teaches on the destruction of the temple. He foretells of the persecutions the disciples will suffer. He tells them to watch out for false messiahs. And he brings it full circle and talks about the fig tree. He tells them, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. They leave the city and return to Bethany. Wednesday is also called Spy Wednesday. And it's all about Judas. Wednesday is when Judas meets with the Sanhedrin to decide to betray Jesus and to be in for exchange for money ahead of the Last Supper. At this point, the Bible tells us that the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus and kill him. And we are told, but not during festival, because the people may riot. They know that the crowd is still with Jesus. While in Bethany, Jesus has supper with Simon the leper. A woman comes with an alabaster jar filled with very expensive oil. She breaks the jar and pours the oil on Jesus' head. Some of the disciples are indignant, speaking amongst themselves, saying, "Why the waste of the oil? We could have sold it and given the money to the poor." He reprimands them. "Leave her alone. She does a beautiful thing for me." He tells them, "The poor will always be with you. You can help them anytime, but you will not have me always." Jesus praises her and her actions. Then Judas goes to the chief priest to betray Jesus to them. They are delighted to hear this and promise to give him money. So he watches for an opportunity to hand him over. Thursday is referred to as Maundy Thursday. This is the night of Passover. Jesus has arranged a place where he and the disciples can meet and observe the Passover meal. On this day, Jesus washes the feet of the disciples and celebrate what is now the Last Supper. The first communion is offered. But he tells the disciples that one of them will betray him and some will deny him. The disciples are dismayed of what he has said. And of course, there's a lot of denying going on. After dinner, Jesus heads to the garden. In this place, we really see the human side of Jesus. The Bible tells us that he is deeply distressed and troubled. He says that his soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. We also hear him ask, "If it's possible, can this cup be taken from me?" But just as quickly, he says, "Not my will, but your will." He's upset that the disciples have fallen asleep after he has asked them to stay awake and pray with him. 3 times he returns to check to see if the disciples are awake. And finally, he says to them, "Enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." The garrison comes. Judas walks up to Jesus and kisses him. And that tells the soldiers who they're to arrest. Just like they planned on Wednesday, the disciples scatter and run. Friday proves to be an agonizing day for Jesus. The once loving crowd is full of rage and anger. He is beaten, crowned with thorns. He is made to drag a cross through the streets. He goes through 6 trials, 3 religious and 3 civil, and ultimately is condemned by the crowd, chanting, Crucify him. And Pilate feels he is doing exactly what the crowd is demanding. And Jesus is sentenced to crucifixion at 3 o'clock that afternoon. Matthew 27, 57 through 61 tells us, as the evening approached, there came a rich man named Joseph, not Jesus' father, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asks for Jesus' body, and Pilate orders that it be given to him. Joseph takes the body, wraps it in clean linen, and places it in his own tomb that he has carved out of a rock. He rolls a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and goes away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. I leave us here at the tomb. You'll hear the rest of the story next week. I leave you with these questions to consider this week. Who are you in this story? When you hear it, which character or characters do you relate to or not? Are you a happy crowd member enjoying festival and overjoyed that Jesus is ridden into town? Or are you one of the angry crowd members? Are you Jesus? Are you one of the disciples, bewildered and scared? Are you the religious leaders, just trying to hang on to what you have? Are you one of the rulers, Herod or Pilate? And what do you think of Jesus? Not to be corny, but maybe a rebel with a cause. Each and every one of these personalities mentioned is part of the story, is part of the week that changed the world. Thank you.